What's up, y'all? It's Nefertiti, the Corny Rainbow here, and today I have a sew along for you guys with my new Know Me Spring 2026 pattern. So on today's sew along, we're going to be doing view C, which is the organza or contrasting dress. The instructions are the exact same for view B and for view C. But if you are choosing to use the organza, which in my opinion is a little bit more challenging if you have never used organza, let's go over some of the suggested fabrics that you can use for this pattern. For view B and C, you can use batiks, chambrays, cotton blends, cotton lawns, jacquard, linen blends, which would be perfect for this shirt dress. Shirting, you can also use georgettes, novelty shears, and organzas, which is what I'll be using today in organza fabric. I'm also using a satin for my contrasting fabric, so that should be really fun. But you can use any fabric that you choose, mix and match, have fun with this pattern. So the notions that you're going to need for this pattern are thread. You're going to need 5/8 of an inch buttons and also interfacing. So let's go ahead and get started. If you are sewing the organza or contrast view with me, we're going to go over the pattern pieces that you're going to need for your contrasting pieces. So you're going to need pattern piece number 5, and you're going to cut 4 of fabric. Pattern piece number 9, which is your lower front, and this is for view B and C. You're going to cut 2 of fabric. Pattern piece number 10, which is your lower back, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. You're going to need pattern piece number 12, which is your neckband. You're going to cut 1 of interfacing and 2 of fabric. Pattern piece number 11, which is your front band, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric and 2 of interfacing. Pattern piece number 14, which is your sleeve band, and you're going to cut 2 of fabric. All right, so for your main fabric, you're going to cut out pattern piece number 6, which is your upper front. You're going to cut out 2 of fabric. Pattern piece number 7, which is your upper back, you're going to cut 1 on the fold. Pattern piece number 8, which is your upper side back, you're going to cut 2 of fabric. And lastly, pattern piece number 13, which is your sleeve, you're going to cut 2 of fabric. Make sure to transfer all your markings and your notches on each pattern piece, and let's go ahead and get started on the first step. You're going to grab pattern piece number 6 and pattern piece number 5, and you should have already reinforced the stitching here, and we're going to trim right at that corner, making sure not to cut past the stitches. And we're going to match up one of our yoke pieces, and you should have a notch there as well. Match up those notches, and we're stitching this with right sides together. I'm going to go ahead and trim right in that corner. And then you should be able to bring that piece around. Go ahead and pin. All right. So once you have everything pinned, and you do want to make sure that you are pivoting at this corner here, then you can go ahead and trim the corner on your yoke. Let's go ahead and go to the machine and sew this up. I am starting on the edge where we're going to pivot, and this might be a little bit hard for you to see, but you can see that I've trimmed and we've spread open right at the corner. So we're going to pivot right at that needle there, and I'm just going to follow along with my stitching lines that I've already sewn down at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And here's where you're going to make sure that you pivot So your shirt front and yoke should look something like this. And we're going to give everything a good press. Turn it to the inside. Press your seams towards the inside of your yoke. And I've gone ahead and trimmed the corner here so that we can fold that down nicely. Trim the seam allowance down to 1/4 of an inch. Give everything a good press. And we're going to attach the second yoke. All right, so I've gone ahead and pressed my seam towards my yoke, and we're going to go ahead and trim everything down. I've grabbed another yoke, and what we're going to do is we're going to press the seam allowance at 5/8 of an inch in on our, you have 2 notch sides, but the notch side where we're going to be matching it up. And then you're going to press in 5/8 of an inch seam allowance on the bottom. And so I've gone ahead and pressed and also trimmed down the inside yoke piece. So I have the shirt turned to the inside. I'm just going to place it on there to make sure that everything matches up. And I'm going to pin at the corner and then also at the very top. If you're not using a sheer fabric, you can slip stitch this yoke piece down, and then you can flip it over and edge stitch. But if you are using a sheer fabric like I am, it's very easy to just pin everything from the right side. That way you can actually see the folds matching up together. All right, we have everything pinned. So from the right side of your top, you're going to edge stitch all the way around. Make sure you're pivoting at that corner. And if you like, you can do another row of top stitching. I'm going to do a second row of top stitching because that's the look that I'm going for. So let's go ahead and head over to the machine. I'm pivoting at that corner there. All right, so everything is top stitched. Now we're going to base stitch the yokes together, and we're going to match our notches. right, so once you finish both pieces for your front and your yoke, we're gonna put this to the side for a second, and we are gonna grab pattern piece number 7 and pattern piece number 8. So on the wrong side of your upper back, we are going to pin wrong sides together our upper side pieces. Should have double notches. Go ahead and stitch 1/4 of an inch seam allowance with the wrong sides together because we are doing French seams. Then we're going to give this a good press, and we're going to do our second stitch, encasing the raw edge. Right, so I've gone ahead and attached both side upper back pieces to my upper back, and we have the right side of the fabric facing up. So your raw edge of your seam allowance should be facing towards you. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to press our seams, and we are going to fold the fabric with right sides together, and we're going to encase that raw edge of stitching that we have there. So go ahead and give this a press and meet me back here. So I've given everything a good press. So again, with right sides of your upper side and upper back pieces, we're going to stitch and encase in that raw edge. So I'm just going to pin because I don't want anything to move around. All right, so again, we have right sides together now. Go ahead and stitch that, press everything open, do that for both sides, and we're going to move on to the next step. So we finished our French seams on the side back pieces and the back piece. So now what we're going to do, with wrong sides together, we're going to stitch our front pieces. Grab your front piece and make sure that you have wrong sides facing, and we are going to match at the shoulder seam and the side seam. So we're doing French seams for the shoulder and side seams as well. If French seams are not your jam, that's cool. You can stitch all seams on this pattern with right sides together, and you can eliminate French seams if you like. For the organza view, it's going to give you the cleanest look. And if you choose not to do French seams, you can then serge your raw edges, or you can add bias tape to your raw edges. Whatever you like, have fun with it. So head on over to the machine, stitch your shoulder seams and your side seams for both front pieces, and then come back. So I've gone ahead and sewn the sides and the shoulder seams together with French seams, and now we're going to put the shirt dress to the side for a second, and we are going to grab our lower back pieces, and with the 3-notched edge, we are going to stitch wrong sides together. I'm going to also sew this seam in the same manner that we have all of our other seams and French seams. Go ahead and stitch 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, trim down your seam if you need to, open it back up, give everything a nice press, and then encase your raw edge. The same way that we have sewn all of our other French seams, we're doing the same thing for pattern piece number 10. Go ahead and do that, come back, and we're going to move on to the next step. So once you have done your French seam on your lower back, we're going to grab our lower front piece and we're going to pin it wrong sides together. Same method, we're doing French seams. The dress is a high-low, so your front will come up higher than your back, and again, you should be matching up the notch. Go ahead and sew your French seams for both sides. Attach your other side. All right, so next we're going to hem the edge of our dress here on the lower front and the lower back. Go ahead and stitch 1/4 of an inch and then press everything up and fold again, and we should have 5/8 of an inch all together for our hem. Give everything a good press, and then we're going to attach this to our front and back. All right, so once you have hemmed the bottom of your lower front and lower back, we're going to go ahead and attach this to the dress. You should have a notch in the front and 2 notches in the back. So, and then you'll also match up your side seams with the dress. So let's go ahead and pin everything wrong sides together. All right, go ahead and stitch at 1/4 of an inch, do your French seams, and then press your seams toward your lower front and back. All right, so we've gone ahead and done our French seams on the lower bottom, and we're going to put this to the side for a second, and we're going to work on our neck bands and our placket. Go ahead and grab your front band or placket, and you're going to go ahead and press the unnotched edge of your front band 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then you're going to trim it down to 3/8 of an inch. All right, I've gone ahead and trimmed down my seam allowance. So now with right sides together, we are going to fold at the fold line, and I went ahead and I marked where my fold line is. And we are only doing this on the bottom edge. So you should have your notches on the top here. You're only going to be straight stitching 5/8 of an inch, and then we're going to turn this out and give everything a good press. All right, so we've pressed and trimmed down our front band, and you want to make sure that you're pressing it at the fold line. And with your notched edge, we're going to go ahead and match our notches with our shirt dress. Pin everything down. Might just need to open that up just a little bit. Make sure that you're turning down your seam allowance on the inside. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go to the machine, and we're going to stitch down on our notched edge at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure that you're not catching this folded edge here. So just push that open, and once you get to the end, just make sure as well that you're not catching the folded edge. right, so once you have stitched that down, go ahead and trim down your seam allowance. Now we're going to fold our band. We're going to push our seam allowance towards the inside of the band. You may have to give this another press. Pin this down, and we're just going to baste down the band right along the stay stitches from the neck edge of the shirt dress. All right, so go ahead and press everything towards the inside of your band, and then we're going to pin down, and you have two options. You can either slip stitch your entire band, or you can pin everything nicely and do top stitching. Again, I'm going to be using top stitching because that's going to cut down time for me. So go ahead and give everything a press, a good press. Pin your folded edge just slightly over those current stitches here, and then you can top stitch to your liking. You can top stitch on both sides. You can do an edge stitch only. It's completely up to you, whatever style you are going for this shirt dress. I'm gonna go ahead and give everything a good press. All right, so I'm starting from the bottom, and I actually changed my foot to an edge stitch foot to make these stitches more precise. If you don't have an edge stitch foot, that is fine. Whatever methods you like to use for top stitching, then go right ahead and do so. All right. This part gets really easy for you because you can actually see where the band is hitting just nicely. All right, so go ahead and give your front band a good press. We're going to do the same exact thing to the other side of our shirt dress. Attach your band in the same manner, and then we're going to attach our neckband. All right, so you've attached your front bands on both sides, and I went ahead and stay stitched the neck edge of the dress. So we're going to put this to the side for a second. Go ahead and grab your neckband, and we're going to be using our interfaced neckband first. So you should have interfaced one of your neckbands, and I went ahead and pressed under 5/8 of an inch on the notched edge of the neckband. You should have also transferred your marking. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down about 3/8 of an inch. All right. Then grab your neckband that is not interfaced, and with right sides together, we are going to be stitching along the unnotched edge until we get to our dots here. So you should have a marking for where your buttonhole and then another marking for your button. But where these dots are where we're going to be stitching, and then we're going to fold everything right side out, trim our seam allowance down, give everything a good press, and we're going to attach this to our neck of our dress. So I went ahead and understitched as far as possible on the interface side of my neckband. And now I'm going to give this a good press. I also went ahead and trimmed down the seam allowance. So we're going to fold this right side out. And we're going to be stitching down our uninterfaced edge to our shirt dress. Grab your dress, and we are going to pin with right sides together. You should have notches on your neckband. Go ahead and match those up first. You should also have a marking that's going to be your shoulder seam, so go ahead and match that up. You're going to match up your next shoulder seam. You should have a marking as well. All right, so go ahead and stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so once you have sewn your neckband on, now we're going to trim down seam allowance. So go ahead and fold your neckband down, and we're doing this in the same manner that we did our front band. So right where your fold is, you're going to be pinning, and you can choose to slip stitch this in place, or you can go ahead and top stitch everything down. I am comfortable enough to edge stitch everything without slip stitching. That's a preference. So if you're edge stitching, you want to make sure that you're edge stitching on the outside of your neckband, not from the inside. So even though I pinned everything on the inside, I'm going to actually be edge stitching on the outside. And you're going to edge stitch all the way around the neckband. So go ahead and do that, and then we're going to move on to our sleeves. Okay, so the neckband is complete, and I've gone ahead and did my top stitching or edge stitching. You can also do edge stitching on the other side of your front band. I'm going to do that just before I attach my buttons. So what we're going to do next is work on our sleeves. You're going to grab your sleeve and your sleeve band. You should have 2 notches, or not 1 notch on each side. Go ahead and pin. You're going to stitch your sleeve band at 5/8 of an inch. And for our sleeve, we are going against the instructions, but if you like, you can follow along with the pattern instructions, which just has you stitching it at 5/8 of an inch on the seam allowance with right sides together. I'm using the organza, and I prefer to continue the remaining portion of the sleeves with the French seams. That can be a little bit challenging when you're going around the curves of the sleeves, but I feel like it is a cleaner look, especially if you're using a sheer fabric. So I am going to pin my sleeves in the same manner that we would if we for our other French seams, with wrong sides together. Go ahead and stitch your French seam on your inseam of your sleeve, and you're going to stitch with right sides together for your sleeve band. Okay, so you have your sleeve and you have your sleeve band. I've gone ahead and pressed the unnotched edge of our sleeve band up 5/8 of an inch, and I'm going to trim that down. So I've trimmed it down and I've done my French seam on my sleeve. So I'm going to turn the sleeve right side out. I'm going to put the sleeve band on, matching up my seams first, and then you should have a notch that you're going to match up as well. Go ahead and stitch your sleeve band to your sleeve at 5/8 of an inch and give everything a good press forward. Then we're going to fold on our fold line our sleeve band, and we're going to edge stitch or slip stitch. The same method that we use for our front band, we're going to use for our sleeve band as well. All right, so I've given my sleeve band a good press. So now because I'm doing French seams on my sleeves as well, that is optional, but this is something that I prefer to do. I am going to be sewing wrong sides together, and I'm still matching my notches. So go ahead and pin. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish my sleeve off with a French seam. If you are not using that method, you're gonna pin your sleeve to your armhole, and you're gonna match up your dots, and you're gonna stitch at 5/8 of an inch with right sides together, and then you're gonna make another stitch at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then you're gonna trim or serge your raw edges. So go ahead and do that and come back, and all that we'll have left are our buttonholes and buttons. All right, we have attached our sleeves, and the last thing that you have left to do is add your buttonholes to your right front band and your buttons to your left front band, and we are all done. All right, y'all, we are all done. You should have completed view B or C of my Know Me 2026 pattern. If you are also sewing view A, there is a sew along for that as well, which is my tank dress. Go ahead and check out that video as well. We would love to see what you created. Please tag at The Corny Rainbow and at Know Me Patterns. Until next time, peace.